John Miller stood at the large window of Earth Defense Command Center, looking at the night sky. The stars were bright, but one light moved in a way stars did not. That light worried him. "Sir, we still can't make contact," said Officer Lisa Brown. She pushed her red hair back from her face. "The object isn't answering on any channel." John nodded. At 45, he had seen many strange things in his years as head of Earth's unified defense force. But this was different. The unknown craft had appeared 3 days ago at the edge of the solar system. It moved with purpose, ignoring all attempts to communicate. "What's its current path?" John asked. "Still heading toward Earth, sir. Speed unchanged." The room hummed with activity. 20 officers watched screens, made calls, and prepared for whatever might come. The year 2137 was supposed to be peaceful. Humans had built homes on Mars and Europa. Earth was protected by the best defense systems ever made. There had been no war for almost 30 years. "Sir," called out Peter Jackson from the sensor station. "The object just released something, small but moving fast toward us." John walked quickly to Peter's screen. "Show me." The screen displayed a small dot separating from the larger craft. Whatever had been sent was now racing toward Earth at impossible speed. "Time to arrival?" John asked. "Just under 6 hours, sir." John picked up the red phone that connected him directly to the World Council. "Madam President, we have a situation." At the Lunar Research Station, Susan Wright peered through her microscope. As the lead scientist studying alien life, she had been called urgently when the strange craft appeared. Now, using powerful telescopes, they had managed to get readings on whatever was heading toward Earth. "This can't be right," she muttered. She looked again at the data. The object was clearly biological in nature, but unlike anything in their records. It absorbed all forms of energy it encountered. More troubling, its cellular structure seemed designed to interact with human biology in some way. Her assistant, Greg Martinez, looked up from his computer. "I've run the simulation 3 times. The same result each time." His young face was pale. "Whatever this thing is, it's changing as it travels. Growing stronger." Susan's phone rang. It was John Miller, from Earth Defense. "Please tell me you have good news," John said. "I wish I did." Susan took a deep breath. "John, this thing seems to be made specifically to target humans. Its biology is engineered to counter our physiology. Someone made this, and they made it to hurt us." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "We're activating all defenses," John finally said. "The president is ordering evacuations of major cities, just in case." "There's more," Susan said. "It's absorbing radiation from space. Every bit of energy it takes in makes it stronger." As if to confirm her words, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Susan looked up at the main screen. "John, it's broadcasting something." A message played on every screen, every speaker, every device connected to the global network. "I am the Vanguard. Submit or be cleansed." The voice was perfect English, with no accent. It sounded almost human. In the Defense Command Center, John watched as the world reacted with panic. Reports flooded in from everywhere. The stock market crashed. Religious groups declared the end of days. Military forces worldwide went to highest alert. "Sir, the object will reach our outer defense grid in 20 minutes, Lisa reported. John straightened his uniform. "Activate the automated defense systems, all of them." This was the moment Earth's defenses had been built for. Satellites armed with laser weapons moved into position. Missile platforms on the moon prepared to fire. The orbital shield generators powered up, creating a barrier of energy around the planet. "Defense grid is ready, sir," said Peter. "Fire everything." The sky lit up with energy beams and missiles. The automated defenses unleashed power enough to destroy a small moon. Everyone watched the screens, holding their breath. When the light faded and the sensors cleared, Officer Lisa gasped, double quotes, sir, ... It's still coming. And it's bigger now. John stared at the screen. The object had absorbed the energy from their weapons. The missiles had done nothing. Now it was nearly twice its original size. Get me Susan Wright again, John ordered. Susan had seen everything from the lunar station. She was already running new tests, trying to understand what they were facing. It's definitely engineered, she told John over the video call. We're calling it the Ravager, based on its cell structure. It's designed to absorb energy and use it to grow. But there's something else. It seems to have been created specifically to counter our technology. Like someone studied us and made the perfect weapon against us. On the screen, John looked grim. How do we stop it? I don't know yet, but we need to try different approaches. Energy weapons clearly make it stronger. It's entering Earth atmosphere. In 10 minutes, John said. I'm assembling an emergency council. We need you there. Susan nodded. I'll take the fast shuttle. I'll be there in 30 minutes. As she ended the call, Susan looked out the window toward the blue planet. Something created to destroy humans was heading there. She gathered her research and headed for the shuttle bay. The Ravager streaked through space like a comet, growing stronger with every passing minute. Its mission was simple: break the humans, destroy their military power, prepare the way for what would follow. It did not expect resistance. It had been designed to be unstoppable. As it entered Earth's atmosphere, the Ravager broadcast once more. Your defenses are nothing. Your weapons make me stronger. Submit or be cleansed. Around the world, people watched the skies with fear. In Montana, a retired Marine named Alan Phillips turned off his television and went to his basement. He had a feeling he might be needed again soon. The first battle for Earth's survival had begun, and humanity was losing. The Ravager tore through the sky above New York City. People ran screaming as the massive creature floated down between skyscrapers. It no longer looked like the small object that had first separated from the alien ship. Now it was huge, with a body that shifted between solid and liquid forms. Long tendrils of energy reached out from its center, touching buildings and making them crumble. In the emergency bunker beneath the Defense Command Center, John Miller watched it all on screens. Susan Wright stood beside him, her face pale. It's targeting military installations first, John said. He pointed to a map showing the Ravager's path of destruction. It hit our East Coast missile bases, then the naval yards. Now it's going after the National Guard headquarters in the city. Susan nodded. That confirms my theory. It was made to destroy our ability to fight back. It's a weapon designed specifically to defeat armies. The room was filled with military leaders from around the world, all connected by secure video. General William Carter from the European Defense Force spoke. We've coordinated a worldwide counterattack. All remaining military bases will fire at the same time. Conventional weapons, experimental weapons, everything we have. John looked at Susan. She shook her head slightly. General Carter, John said, our tests show that energy weapons make this thing stronger. It absorbs the power and grows. We have no choice, the general replied. We've loaded special ammunition. Some of it is purely kinetic, no energy signature. Some contains experimental compounds. If we hit it with everything at once, something might work. John sighed. Coordinate with our remaining forces. Attack in 30 minutes. As the military leaders left to prepare, Susan pulled John aside. My team has been studying the tissue samples we collected from where the Ravager touched down briefly in Boston. There's something strange about how its cells react to human presence. What do you mean? John asked. The cells seem to become unstable when exposed to certain human hormones and chemicals. But we need more data. A loud alarm interrupted them. On the main screen, the Ravager was moving again, heading west. It's going after our missile silos in the Midwest, John said. We need to evacuate those areas immediately. In his small house in Montana, Alan Phillips watched the news with a grim face. The Ravager had destroyed half the military bases on the East Coast. Now it was heading toward the center of the country. Alan had been a Marine for 20 years before. Retiring. He had fought in the last war and seen things most people couldn't imagine. But this was different. This was something not human. The television showed footage of the Ravager moving across Pennsylvania. Military jets fired missiles at it. Tanks shot from the ground. For a moment, the Ravager seemed to falter under the barrage of weapons. Then, it grew larger, absorbing the explosions. Its surface hardened against the bullets and shells, developing what looked like armor plates. It's learning, Alan muttered to himself. Every time we hit it, it adapts. But something caught his eye. In the footage, when a group of rescue workers approached to help injured soldiers, the Ravager seemed to pull back slightly. It was brief, just a moment, but Alan noticed it. The creature had hesitated when unarmed humans got close. Alan picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. This is Alan Phillips, Marine Corps, retired. Authorization code Sierra 947. I need to speak to whoever is in charge of the response to this thing. I noticed something important. The coordinated worldwide attack began exactly as planned. Every remaining military base fired their weapons at once. Missiles flew through the air. Artillery pounded from the ground. Fighter jets dropped special bombs designed to penetrate the toughest armor in the bunker. John and Susan watched the attack unfold. For a brief moment, it seemed to work. The Ravager stopped moving. Its surface rippled as explosions hit it from all sides. Then it changed. The surface of the Ravager grew thicker, developing layers that looked like scales or plates. The energy tendrils pulled back inside its body. It became a solid mass, hunched down against the attack. When the firing stopped, the Ravager uncurled. It was different now. Bigger, stronger, armored. It sent out a pulse of energy that disabled every electronic device within 5 miles. It adapted, Susan whispered. It created a shell against physical attacks. John's face was grim. We just made it stronger. Again, his secure phone rang. Sir, there's a retired Marine named Alan Phillips calling. Says he noticed something about the Ravager's behavior. He's been cleared through security protocols. John put the call on speaker. This is Defense Commander Miller. What did you see, Mr. Phillips? Alan's voice was calm and steady. When I was watching the footage from Pennsylvania, I noticed the Ravager pulled back when unarmed rescue workers approached. It was just for a second, but it seemed uncomfortable with them being close. Susan leaned forward. That matches what we're seeing in the lab. The cell samples react strangely to human biological signatures. Mr. Phillips, we're sending transport to bring you here, John said. We need all the insights we can get. After ending the call, John faced the room of grim officials. The President has authorized the nuclear option. We have no choice now. Susan grabbed his arm. John, if it absorbs energy from conventional weapons, what do you think will happen if we hit it with nuclear bombs? We're out of options, John replied quietly. The AI models predict complete human extinction within 30 days if we don't stop this thing. The first nuclear missile hit the Ravager as it approached Chicago. The blast was carefully controlled, designed to minimize civilian casualties while maximizing impact on the target. When the dust settled, everyone stared at their screens in horror. The Ravager had not only survived, it was now 3 times larger. Its body glowed with absorbed radiation. It sent out massive energy tendrils that destroyed everything in a 10-mile radius dot in the bunker. John watched the casualty reports come in. Millions dead, more cities being evacuated. The Ravager was moving faster now, destroying military bases with terrifying efficiency. "We just made it much worse," Susan said quietly. John nodded. "Get your team working on those human biological factors immediately. And get Alan Phillips here as fast as possible. We need a new approach." Outside, the world burned as the Ravager continued its path of destruction. Humanity's greatest weapons had failed. Their technology had been turned against them. What remained? Was the question no one wanted to ask. Was there anything that could stop this monster? Susan Wright had not slept in 2 days. The underground lab beneath Denver was the last major research facility still operating. Most others had been destroyed by the Ravager or abandoned during evacuations. She stared at the tissue samples through her microscope, fighting to keep her eyes open. "You need to rest," Greg Martinez said, placing a cup of coffee beside her. The young scientist looked as tired as she felt. "No time," Susan replied. She took a sip of coffee and went back to the microscope. "Look at this. When I add the human sweat sample, the cells become unstable." Greg leaned in to look. The sample of the Ravager's tissue was breaking down, its edges dissolving. "What does it mean?" he asked. "I'm not sure yet, but I think the Ravager wasn't designed to handle direct contact with humans." Susan moved to another station and pulled up test results on a screen. "We've tested it against different human samples: blood, sweat, tears, saliva. The cells react most strongly to sweat samples taken from people under stress." Greg's eyes widened. "The hormones and chemicals our bodies produce when we're afraid or fighting ... Exactly. The Ravager seems highly vulnerable to human stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol." Susan shook her head, amazed by what they were discovering. "It was designed to fight our technology, our weapons. But maybe its creators never expected it to deal with actual human bodies up close." The door to the lab opened, and John Miller walked in with an older man Susan didn't recognize. "Susan, this is Alan Phillips, the retired Marine who noticed the Ravager's reaction to the rescue workers." John looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a grim expression. Alan nodded to Susan. "Ma'am, any progress?" Susan quickly explained what they had discovered about the Ravager's reaction to human stress hormones. Alan listened carefully, nodding as if her words confirmed something he already suspected. "That makes sense with what I saw," he said when she finished. "Those rescue workers were terrified, but still doing their jobs. Their bodies would have been pumping out stress hormones like crazy." John rubbed his forehead. "So you're saying this thing that has shrugged off nuclear weapons might be vulnerable to human sweat?" "Not just sweat," Susan corrected. "The specific cocktail of chemicals our bodies produce under extreme stress, when we're afraid but still fighting." Greg spoke up from his computer. "I've compiled all the footage we have of the Ravager. There's a pattern. It keeps its distance from large groups of people. It targets empty military installations first, then moves to populated areas only after they've been partially evacuated. It's avoiding direct contact with humans," Alan said softly, "because we're toxic to it." The 4 of them stood in silence, letting the implications sink in. John was the first to speak. "We need to confirm this. How do we test it?" "We already have data from the field," Susan said. She pulled up a map showing the Ravager's path. "See these deviations? Each time, there was a large group of civilians who hadn't evacuated yet. It went around them." "So what are you suggesting?" John asked. "We can't exactly ask people to walk up to this monster." Alan straightened his shoulders. That's exactly what we need to do. The Emergency World Council meeting was heated. On screens. Around the room, leaders from surviving governments argued about Susan's theory and Alan's proposal. "This is madness," the European president shouted. "You want to send unarmed people to face this creature? After we've seen what it did to our armies?" John stood firm. "Every weapon we've used has only made it stronger. Dr. Wright's research shows this may be our only chance." Susan stepped forward. "The Ravager was engineered to fight our technology. It absorbs energy, adapts to our weapons, and grows stronger with each attack. But its cellular structure breaks down when exposed to the chemicals produced by human bodies under stress." "You're asking for volunteers to die," said the Asian Alliance representative. "I'm asking for volunteers to save humanity," John replied. "And I'll be among them." The debate continued for hours. Meanwhile, the Ravager had destroyed 3 more military bases and was moving toward Denver. Evacuation orders had gone out, but everyone knew many people wouldn't make it out in time. Finally, the world president spoke. "We have no other options. Authorize the mission. But participation must be strictly voluntary." News of the plan spread quickly. The call went out for volunteers, people willing to approach the Ravager unarmed, to test Susan's theory that human presence might weaken it. Alan Phillips was the first to sign up. Despite John's objections, the old Marine insisted on joining the mission. "I've been in combat. I know how to control fear, use it," he explained. "And frankly, sir, I've lived my life. These young people haven't." To everyone's surprise, hundreds of people volunteered. Military personnel, police officers, firefighters, and ordinary citizens. They would need to train quickly, learning not to suppress their fear, but to channel it. Susan worked with the volunteers, explaining her theory in simple terms. Your bodies produce specific chemicals when you're afraid, but still functioning. Those chemicals seem toxic to the Ravager. We don't need you to be fearless. We need you to be afraid and still move forward. A young woman raised her hand. What happens when we get close to it? What do we do then? Susan exchanged glances with John. We don't know exactly, but our tests suggest direct physical contact might cause the most damage to its cellular structure. You want us to touch it? Someone asked, voice trembling. Only if possible, John said. The primary goal is to get close enough for your natural body chemistry to affect it. As the meeting ended, a woman approached Alan. She was tall and muscular, with short black hair. Karen Lopez, she introduced herself. Former Olympic wrestler. I heard you were the first volunteer. Alan nodded. Someone has to go first. Karen's eyes were determined. Well, now there are 2 of us. Across the room, Susan watched the volunteers talking among themselves. She turned to Greg, who was monitoring the Ravager's approach on his tablet. What do you think our chances are? She asked quietly. Greg looked up, his face serious. Honestly, if we're right about this, maybe 30%. If we're wrong, ... He didn't finish the sentence. How long until it reaches Denver? At its current speed, less than 48 hours. Susan took a deep breath. Then we have 2 days to prepare these people for the most important mission in human history. Outside the training facility, the sky darkened as storm clouds gathered. But it wasn't a natural storm. The Ravager was coming, growing larger with each mile, leaving destruction in its wake. Humanity's last hope now rested on the most basic. Human traits, the body's natural response to fear, and the courage to face it anyway. The 100 volunteers stood in formation outside Denver. They wore simple clothes, jeans, t-shirts, lightweight jackets. No armor, no weapons. Nothing technological that the Ravager could use against them. Karen Lopez moved through the group, checking on each person. Over the past week, she had emerged as their natural leader. Her background as an Olympic wrestler gave her a unique understanding of how to channel fear and stress. "Remember your training," she said to a nervous young man. "Don't fight the fear. Use it. Let your body do what it naturally does." Alan Phillips stood at the front of the group. At 62, he was the oldest volunteer. Many had questioned if he should be there, but no one questioned his courage. "It's coming," he said, pointing to the horizon dot in the distance. A dark shape moved across the plains. The Ravager had grown enormously since its first appearance. Now it was the size of a small mountain, its surface shifting between solid and liquid states. Energy tendrils whipped around it, destroying everything they touched. Behind the volunteers, the last military base in North America prepared for its final stand. If Susan's theory was wrong, if the volunteers failed, this would be humanity's last major defensive position. John Miller approached the group. He had wanted to join them, but as the head of Earth's remaining defenses, his place was at the command center. "You all know the plan," he said. "Approach slowly in groups of 10. If any group sees a reaction from the Ravager, the others move to support them. Remember, your fear, your stress, your human biology is your weapon." Susan Wright stood beside a mobile lab unit nearby. She would monitor the Ravager's reactions from a safe distance. "We'll be watching closely," she told the volunteers. "Any sign of cellular breakdown in the Ravager, and we'll guide you on what to do next." Karen stepped forward. "We're ready." John looked at the brave people before him. Ordinary humans preparing to face a monster with nothing but their courage and their bodies. "Good luck," he said simply. "Humanity is counting on you." As John and Susan returned to the command post, Karen turned to address the volunteers. "We move in 5 minutes. Stay with your groups. Watch each other's backs." She looked at each face. "We can do this." Alan checked his watch. "Time to go." The volunteers moved forward in 10 groups of 10, spreading out to approach the Ravager from different angles. They had practiced this formation for days, but nothing could prepare them for the reality of walking toward the massive creature that had destroyed cities and defeated armies. The Ravager seemed to notice them when they were half a mile away. Its movements slowed. The energy tendrils pulled back slightly, then extended again, searching. "It sees us," Karen said into her radio. "Keep moving," came John's voice in reply. "We're monitoring its reactions." The first group, led by Alan, was now a quarter mile from the Ravager. Close enough to feel the strange energy it gave off. Close enough to smell the odd, metallic scent in the air around it. Suddenly, one of the energy tendrils lashed out, striking the ground in front of Alan's group. Earth exploded upward. 2 volunteers were thrown back, injured by debris. "Hold position," Karen called out. Group 2 moved to support Group 1. Karen led Group 2 forward at a jog. As they approached, the Ravager sent more tendrils toward them. One struck a young woman directly. She screamed and fell, her body smoking. Howland felt rage and grief rise in him, but he forced himself to channel those emotions. He continued forward, step by step. "It's reacting defensively." Susan's voice came through the radio. "The readings show disturbances in its outer membrane. Keep going." More energy tendrils lashed out. More volunteers fell. But the remaining groups continued their approach, moving steadily toward the RAVA, R. At 100 yards. Something strange happened. The Ravager's surface began to ripple more violently. The solid parts seemed to be struggling to maintain their form. "It's working," Susan called excitedly. "Its cellular structure is becoming unstable. The closer you get, the stronger the effect." Karen looked back at the remaining volunteers. Nearly 30 had fallen already, either dead or too injured to continue. But the rest pushed on, their faces showing determination despite their fear. Groups 3 and 4 "Circle to the left," she ordered. "Groups 5 and 6 to the right. The rest follow me straight ahead." As they closed the distance to 50 yards, the Ravagers' attacks became more erratic. The energy tendrils moved wildly, striking the ground randomly. Its surface bulged and contracted as if it was in pain. "Susan, what's happening?" Karen asked. "Through the radio. Its internal structure is breaking down," Susan replied. "The effect is stronger than we predicted. But it's still dangerous, perhaps even more so as it destabilizes." Alan, now just 30 yards from the Ravager, saw an opening. A section of its surface had become almost transparent, revealing a darker core within. "I see something," he called. "There's a central structure inside it." "That must be its control center," Susan replied. "If you can reach that ... Alan didn't wait for her to finish. He began running toward the Ravager, straight at the transparent section. Behind him, Karen saw what he was doing. "Cover him." She shouted, "Groups 7 and 8, provide distraction." The volunteers moved as one, some running to draw the Ravager's attention, others following Alan toward the weakened section of its surface at 20 yards. Alan felt his skin burning from the energy the Ravager was emitting. At 10 yards, his vision began to blur. But he kept moving. 5 yards. 3. 1. Alan reached out his hand and touched the Ravager's surface. It felt both solid and liquid at the same time, burning cold against his skin. He pushed his hand forward, and to his surprise, it passed through. The membrane. The Ravager emitted a sound for the first time. A high-pitched wail that made everyone cover their ears. Its surface rippled violently around Alan's arm. "It's working!" Karen shouted. She turned to the others. "Everyone who can, make contact with it. Physical touch is hurting it." Karen ran forward and pressed her palm against the Ravager's surface. The creature's wail grew louder. More volunteers approached from all sides, reaching out to touch the monster. Each point of contact caused the Ravager's surface to crystallize and crack. The energy tendrils thrashed wildly, but they were weakening, becoming less coherent. Alan pushed his arm deeper into the Ravager, reaching for the dark core he had seen. His body screamed with pain, but he kept pushing. "Almost there," he gasped out from the command post. John and Susan watched in amazement as the Ravager began to contract, its massive form shrinking as the volunteers made contact with it from all sides. "It's working," Susan whispered. "It's actually working." On her monitors, the Ravager's cellular structure was collapsing. The creature that had shrugged off nuclear weapons was being destroyed by human touch. Karen pressed both hands against the Ravager's surface now, her face contorted with pain but determined. Around her, the surviving volunteers did the same. "For Earth," she said through gritted teeth. "For humanity." The Ravager's wail reached an unbearable pitch. Its outer layers began to crystallize completely, cracking like glass. And deep inside, Alan's fingers touched the dark core. Alan's fingers closed around something solid within the Ravager's core. Pain shot through his body like fire, but he held on. The dark object pulsed in his grip, almost like a heart. "I've got something," he gasped into his radio. "It feels alive." Susan's voice crackled back. "Hold on to it, Ellen. Our readings show that's the control center." Around the Ravager, the remaining volunteers pressed their hands against its surface. Each touch caused more of the creature to crystallize and crack. Its massive form was shrinking, collapsing in on itself. Karen pushed both arms into the Ravager's membrane, reaching toward where Alan was. Her muscles strained with effort as she forced her way through the strange substance. "I see you, Alan," she called. "I'm coming to help." The Ravager's wail changed pitch, becoming lower, almost like words. John and Susan heard it through the monitors at the command post. Impossible, the sound seemed to say. They were supposed to be weak. Susan looked at her screens in amazement. It's communicating. It didn't expect this. John grabbed the radio. The alien ship that deployed the Ravager is changing course. It's moving away from Earth. Karen reached Alan inside the Ravager. His face was pale, his eyes unfocused from pain. Together, they gripped the core, a dark, crystalline object the size of a basketball. Pull it out, Susan instructed. Remove it from the Ravager's body. With their combined strength, Karen and Alan pulled. The core resisted, sending out pulses of energy that made them cry out in pain. But they didn't let go. Everyone, Karen shouted to the others, push inward. Help. U.S. extract the core. The 40 remaining volunteers pressed harder against the Ravager's surface, pushing into it from all sides. The pressure forced the core to loosen its connections to the rest of the Ravager's body. With a sudden release, the core came free in Karen and Alan's hands. They fell backward, still holding it. The Ravager's wail reached an impossible volume, then stopped abruptly. Without its core, the Ravager's body began to collapse completely. The energy tendrils disappeared. The membrane hardened and shattered like glass. Within minutes, the massive creature that had threatened all of humanity was reduced to crystal-like fragments scattered across the ground. Karen and Alan sat together, the dark core between them. It was no longer pulsing. Its surface was growing, dull and lifeless. We did it, Karen whispered. Alan nodded, too exhausted to speak. Around them, the other volunteers were helping the injured, counting their losses. Of the 100 who had started the mission, 37 had died. Many others were badly injured. Susan and John rushed from the command post to the battlefield. Susan immediately began examining the core and the crystallized remains of the Ravager. The alien ship is leaving the solar system, John announced, checking his tablet. It's moving away at high speed. Susan looked up from her examination. They didn't expect this outcome. The Ravager was supposed to be unstoppable, but they didn't account for direct human contact. One of the volunteers spoke up. Why would they send something that's vulnerable to us? Susan stood, brushing crystal dust from her hands. Because they fundamentally misunderstood humanity. They studied our weapons, our technology, our defenses. They designed the Ravager to counter all of that. She gestured to the fragments around them. But they never considered that our bodies themselves might be a weapon. The stress hormones, the adrenaline, the cortisol, all the chemicals our bodies produce naturally when we're afraid but fighting anyway, those were toxic to it. They thought we would only fight with machines, Alan said weakly. Karen was helping him to his feet. They didn't expect us to face it directly. John looked around at the brave volunteers. They underestimated human courage. In the days that followed, scientists from around the world gathered to study the Ravager's remains. They confirmed Susan's theory. The creature had been engineered to absorb and counter human technology, but direct exposure to human biology, especially stress hormones, caused its cellular structure to break down. A memorial was built to honor the 37 volunteers who had given their lives. Their names were inscribed on a wall of black stone with the words, "They saved humanity with human strength alone." Written above them. Karen and Alan both received medals for their bravery, though Alan insisted he had only done what anyone would do. His injuries were severe, and doctors weren't sure if he would fully recover. But he faced his recovery with the same determination he had shown against the Ravager. 1 month after the battle, Susan called John, Karen, and Alan to her lab. Her face was serious as they gathered around her computer screen. "Deep space probes have detected something," she said. "More ships, similar to the one that brought the Ravager. They're still far away, but they're heading toward our solar system." John's Expression hardened. How many? At least 5 that we can see. Possibly more beyond our detection range. Karen looked at the screen, then at the others. They're coming back. With more weapons like the Ravager. But different this time, Susan said. They'll have studied what happened. They'll try to correct their mistake. Alan nodded slowly. And we'll be ready for them. We know our strength now. We know what we can do. John looked at the images of the approaching ships. We need to prepare. Not just with technology and weapons, but with people. Brave people willing to face these things directly. We'll find them, Karen said confidently. After what happened here, there will be volunteers from every corner of the world. Susan turned off her computer screen. The aliens thought we were weak because we rely on our machines. They saw that as a vulnerability to exploit. But they were wrong, Alan said. Our real strength was always inside us. As they left the lab, they looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, alien ships were approaching, carrying new threats, designed to destroy humanity. But Earth would be ready for them. The lesson had been learned. The strength of humanity wasn't in its weapons or its technology. It was in humans themselves.